Hello and welcome to another dead air video with a little bit of a difference this time. Now you might remember earlier in the year, a few months ago, we took you down the Victoria Tunnel and explored what many people believe to be a haunted former Victorian coal wagon way turned World War II air raid shelter, and brought you some footage from down there. Got some really incredible results as well. Now that's the end you would go into if you were doing a tour, if you were booking up on a tour and you were going in. That's open to the public. But that's only a fraction of the full tunnel. The full tunnel goes for nearly 2.5 miles underneath Newcastle. And I've got access to show you what it's like in the north end of the Victoria Tunnel. Now this is closed off to the public. People aren't allowed down here, although some have broken in over the years. But it's sealed up now. The public cannot enter this part of the tunnel. And it is full of so many hidden little gems. I'm going to show you it now. If you haven't seen the first part of the video where we went into the Ouseburn end and did a full ghost investigation there, click the little link and it goes over some of the history of the tunnel, some of the deaths that have occurred linked to the Victoria Tunnel. So watch that first, and then I'm going to show you now. I'm going to head over there and show you the north end of the Victoria Tunnel, where you would go in via the Hancock Museum and up underneath Claremont Road, a much larger section. The Victoria Tunnel starts under Spital Tongues, which is where the colliery used to be. It then joins and runs parallel with Claremont Road, which is where I'll be walking in this video, down to the Hancock Museum, which is the entrance which I got access to. It then runs underneath St Thomas's Church, next to the Civic Centre. If you watch part 1, you will see when we explored the south end, which goes from the River Tyne at Ouseburn all the way up to Newbridge Street. Sadly, the bit in the middle is not accessible by anyone. Over the years, people have got into the Victoria Tunnel illegally, which means that there's graffiti everywhere. This is terrible. Even though it's derelict, it's still got old World War II artefacts in, which is really sad. If you are wanting to get into the Victoria Tunnel, check out their website and get a proper tour at the south end of the tunnel. So this is where the original entrance from Claremont Road down into the Victoria Tunnel would have been. You can see the original handrail, and it's blocked up here with a wall, which was obviously put in after the entrance was closed up. We're going to go this way, so this is the way you would have come during an air raid into the original tunnel, the original Victorian coal wagon way. So as you can imagine, quite steep. We've even got some roots coming down from the trees directly above us. As you can see, graffiti from when people have broken in years gone by. Couldn't have fancied coming down here in a hurry, because the air raid sirens were going off. That meant danger, and you wouldn't have taken your time to get down here. So not as steep as the one that's at the south end of the tunnel. And then here we join the original Victorian wagonway. I'm just going to turn right and show you some features. Along here you can see an old bicycle wheel or pram wheel. Here we see the toilets, where the toilets would have been, those chemical toilets, characterised by Chanel markings, if you like. You always had those around about the entrances. You can see a lot of rubbish piled up here. You definitely understand why they don't bring members of the public down this end. And you can see a post here that would have probably been a doorway. They think there was a doorway here during the war that would have stopped people coming past here, and this would have just been general storage of whatever down here. And then Just going to walk a little bit up. Now if you see on the map from Claremont Road, this tunnel curves to the left, which is the direction it would have gone to the colliery at Spital Tongues, and that's where we are now. We're on that kind of bend, and you can see it's been backfilled up just there. So this is probably done after the tunnel closed, but before the war, so you can see you can get no further. Okay, so we've turned left and we've gone down from Claremont Road down to what would have been towards the city centre. You can see here original metal seating that hasn't been removed. A lot of the wood was taken out, but these are the original seats that were installed for the Second World War. You can see where kids have broken in this place. They have actually sealed up the Claremont Road manhole cover to try and stop people getting in, because it did become a bit of a problem. You can see here original marks where the benches have been just ripped out, and don't forget at the south end, at the Ouseburn end, they don't have it like this because it's obviously been modernised for taking tour groups down and tidied up a little bit, which they got from loss refunding. And this bit's pretty much been left since the war, so you'll see there's not much. It hasn't been tidied up, the floor's not been made safe. There's a bit more dirt here, a bit more wooden remnants of old seating. There's a bit of speculation about where that fatal accident, the Coulton accident, happened. Some people believe it was about halfway up the tunnel, which would have placed it under what is now the Central Motorway. Another source claims that they got close to the pit entrance, which would mean it was sort of this end, around here somewhere, of the tunnel. But you try and look for little markings on the wall, like scratch marks and scrapes where a wagon would have derailed, but it's obviously with the war happening about 100 years later, it's all been redone. This floor has been put in, the original rails were probably removed, and you can see little posts here, and it becomes a fascinating place. Here we talk about, look at the graffiti. This is probably Second World War graffiti, because it's inside the lime wash, which was put on in the Second World War. So this you wouldn't think would be modern graffiti. You can see original holes in the wall. This was a remnant of when it was a coal wagonway in the Victorian times. It was they had these holes in the wall. Oh, look at that, more graffiti, and they were used with essentially a long bit of think of like the material they use for guitars, the strings in a guitar, and it would have stretched the whole length of the tunnel, so when they wanted to let someone know at the top end they were finished, the coal wagon was ready to be brought back up, they could just pull on here. It was called wrapping at the time. Another large section on that one. Here we get to the blast walls. Again, these are put in as a safety measure because we're not 55 feet below ground, so if a bomb went off directly above us or in this section, it would essentially just rip through the entire tunnel and kill everybody, suck all the air out. So these blast walls were put in as a way of, like a form of protection. It would dissipate the energy and keep everyone safe. And you did get more of a sense of going downhill. If you went that way, it would feel more going uphill. Obviously at the Ouseburn end you're going into the valley, so you don't really get that sort of sensation of walking uphill, but you do at this end. Every now and again you see where the seats have been ripped up, or where bunk beds would have been, where people would have sat and waited for hours. It would have been, people would have been down here for waiting to find out if they were okay to go back up. And imagine the feeling of being down here as well. You wouldn't have known if your house was going to be there. A lot of houses in Newcastle were bombed, especially in the Shieldfield area. A little bit of tunnel comes down. You can see a repair section here, and that's probably Second World War repair. More blast walls. You'll notice the blast walls down here are more, there's more of them at this north end of the tunnel than what there is at the south end, and they're more spread out as well. At the north end they were just, a few metres apart. At this end they're sort of more spaced out, but there's more of them. So we're now probably at the bottom end of Claremont Road. There's a bit of bricks just piled up there, and a damaged section here, but you can see something's been there. Again, what it was, I don't know, but there's definitely been something here that's just been pulled out after the war. Graffiti there, and original section markings. These were used to sort of determine the sections of which section of the tunnel you were in. So if there was people needed to get to section 4, for example, they knew to get to this bit. They were all numbered. Now remember, this is technically off bounds to the public, so when the public come on their guided tours they go to the Ouseburn end, where it's all been nicely done up, cleaned up a little bit, shall we say. You don't get that, and it's safe to take groups of people down, whereas this bit isn't. So this is quite a long beware the zombies. Thanks for the heads up. Hopefully we won't come across any zombies. Apparently the council, I read, looked at this tunnel in the Cold War as a potential place for refuge during a nuclear bomb attack, if it ever escalated to that. Thankfully it never did, but there was actually a proposal drawn up many years ago to turn this place into a Cold War air raid shelter. Let me see here. No smoking alert. You could smoke down here, but not during an air raid when everyone was using it. So you can imagine the smokers would have been there. So we see it there, no smoking during an alert. And then some graffiti that someone's been here in 1966, 1968. Happy birthday, Rick. Yeah, I hope Rick had a nice birthday in 68. So if you were a smoker, you would have, well, essentially had to stop as soon as the public had to come down here. So and you couldn't just go out for a tab for a cigarette, because there was potentially bombs coming down, so you can imagine how frustrating it would have been. So this tunnel in total is just a tad under 2.5 miles, stretching from Spital Tongues down to the River Tyne at Ouseburn. It's really hard to imagine coal wagon trucks coming down here. It's really hard to imagine as well if you were down here, if you were William Coulson or Benjamin and Ralph Arkless, what you would have done if you'd heard. Like, I mean, we talk about what you would do. I'd lie down, but the amount of guts it would have taken to do that, the fear of knowing that you would be centimetres away, probably less than probably instant death, and sadly as Mr. William Coulson found out. But it would have been in a section like this, would have been no blast rolls back then, obviously when coal wagon trucks were coming down here. And then obviously these blast walls were built into the tunnel for the Second World War. As you can see, it's not very clean underfoot. Thankfully I've got my Wellington boots on. Look at that as well. Oh, look at this. I'll step back so you can see that metal going over. I'm not sure what that was for. It's obviously Second World War. We know that because during the coal wagon era, people wouldn't have generally come down here. This would have just been for wagons, being sent up and down here. The only reason people came in here were when they believed that there were no wagons coming down that day, and that's how the fatal accident of 1852 occurred. Nice little long section here. And don't forget the middle of this tunnel, the central section, is totally inaccessible now. It's unless you want to crawl through a sewer. But the section under the Central Motorway is concreted, because they believed that if this tunnel was still existing under the Central Motorway in Newcastle, it could cause something like a sinkhole. There could have been a collapse, so they filled it in. So sadly this tunnel is not complete anymore. Just look at all the sludge that's just built up here. Lovely. Again, another repair section here. But you can see there's a little piece of wood going along a couple of meters. So there's something here, probably war. Maybe a cabinet or something in here. It doesn't really echo much down here either. You'll notice that the echo's gone in my voice and in my footsteps. Some of that will be to do with the damp down here. The damp takes a lot of the vibrations out of an echo, so you can see more sludge is built up there. And it's tarmacked here. You can see it's been tarmacked underfoot in this section. There's a story of a few guides who came down here in January of this year. A few of the Victoria Tunnel guides who have access to this tunnel, and two of them claimed that when they entered this tunnel from this north end, they heard a voice that said Happy New Year, and that was back at the start of January. Were they hearing things, or is there something down here? Although if the Coulson accident occurred at this end of the tunnel, you'd think this end would be more likely to be haunted. But then again, they get strange things at the Ouseburn end of the tunnel. Sadly, paranormal groups aren't allowed in this end. We've got exclusive access to this bit. In fact, none of the members of the public have access to this section of the tunnel. It's a much longer section as well than the south end. You can see another bit of repair section down here, a lime wash section. If you watch our first video, you'll see lime wash was used to had a mild antiseptic in, so it could kill a lot of bacteria. It's very sludgy, nearly slipped over there, very sludgy underfoot here. Again, look at the bricks just coming down. That's no lighting fixture there, so there could have been a light bulb in there. Lime wash would have been here, which would have helped illuminate the light a little bit more. And you know what, not many people in Newcastle know this is under their feet. People who drive into Newcastle via Grandstand Road or Claremont Road, not many people knew it was here. Not many people even know it's here now. So we come into a bit of a messy section. Good job I've got wellies on. You can see more toilets. More toilets at this section here. And more graffiti, as we're now underneath the Hancock Museum. This is the old Hancock Entrance. Look at this. It's really getting wet here. So this is the bottom of the ramp at the Hancock Entrance. You know, just like a little maze. You can see where people have graffiti down here, and so we're not that far down. You saw how steep the ramp was when we came in, and I'm going to show you as far as the tunnel goes if we went southwards to the left. So we're now walking into the section, if you know Newcastle, where Haymarket is, under that way, and obviously there was an entrance nearby at St Thomas's, which is now where the Civic Centre is in Newcastle. That was built many years after this was constructed. So we're now going the other way, and you can see a couple of bags that have been left here. We think maybe people have broken into this tunnel before. We get people who break in. There's definitely some clothes there, so maybe homeless people have tried to get in here, and from this point on it's going to get very wet, so as you can see we need wellies. And then you get to this bit, and you can see this is where they've installed metal lining, metal tube. Like I say, there's a storm drain further down there. If I can get the camera down here and maybe zoom in so you can see what's down there. Not a lot. There is the entrance, the old entrance at St Thomas's, just in front of the Civic Centre. That's probably about another 15 metres further on, but for health and safety we can't go any further in there. As you can see, it's full of water here, and sadly this is as far as we're going to go today. But that's the Victoria Tunnel. So if you watch part 1, you'll see us walk from Ouse Street up to New Bridge Street. So that's about 700 metres. As I bang my head and get out of here. And if we've walked probably the equivalent of Claremont Road down to where the Civic Centre, St Thomas's Church is in Newcastle. So combined there's probably maybe a mile and a half there that we've managed to get in and get video footage from. I've got to say thank you as well to the Victoria Tunnel for... We haven't broken in here, by the way. We aren't the people who come in here and do the graffiti. It's we've got kind permission. There is someone stood at the Hancock Entrance now who's going to let me back out. Just so you know that we're not illegally entering this tunnel. It is illegal to come down here, by the way, so please, if you're watching this and you think that'd be cool to get down there, please don't. For health and safety reasons, we can't take members of the public down here for tours or for ghost hunts. As you hear a train go past. Well, it could be traffic actually, because the Hancock door is open. I'm just going to come out this way. Light at the top. Look how this is constructed with little indentations so you can walk up it. And we are free. We can hear voices at the top. So I've not been locked in and left. If you want to book a tour of the Victoria Tunnel, go on their website. We'll pop a link in the description, and also a link to how you can watch part 1 when we came down here, but the other end of the tunnel. It's an incredible place, isn't it? If you enjoyed our video, please hit the subscribe button and check out more of our content, where you'll also be able to see part 1, where we went into the Ouseburn end of the Victoria Tunnel.